There are over 11,000 species of dinosaur alive on Earth right now. Not fossils, not bones in a museum. Alive, breathing, and most of them can fly. You've seen dozens of them just this week without realizing what you were looking at. Because somewhere between the textbook and the museum diorama, we all got told the same story. An asteroid hit 66 million years ago, and the dinosaurs went extinct. Full stop. End of chapter. Except that's not what happened. One branch of the dinosaur family didn't just survive the worst extinction event in the history of this planet. It's outside your window right now. In 1861, workers in a German limestone quarry split open a slab of rock and found something that made no sense. A skeleton with a long bony tail, sharp teeth, and clawed hands, like a small dinosaur. But pressed into the stone around it were the unmistakable imprints of feathers. Scientists named it Archaeopteryx. And for over a century, nobody could agree on what it actually was. A bird with reptile features, or a dinosaur that happened to have feathers. Here's the thing that took another 130 years to prove. It wasn't a strange in-between creature, it was both, because there was never a hard line separating the two in the first place. But almost nobody believed that at first. For most of the 20th century, the leading theory was that birds evolved from some much older reptile ancestor, completely separate from dinosaurs, and the resemblance to Archaeopteryx was just coincidence. Then, in 1964, a paleontologist named John Ostrom dug up a skeleton in Montana that he named Deinonychus, a fast, sharp-clawed predator built almost exactly like the movie version of a raptor decades before Jurassic Park existed. Ostrom noticed something nobody wanted to hear. The wrist, the hips, the way the whole skeleton was built for speed and balance. It matched birds almost bone for bone. He spent the next 20 years being told he was wrong. Colleagues dismissed the idea. Entire conferences were built around debunking it. Paleontologists called it the bird-dinosaur wars, and for a while, Ostrom was mostly fighting it alone. Then, in the 1990s, the fossils from Liaoning province, China, started coming out of the ground. Dozens of small, meat-eating dinosaurs, the exact same family as Velociraptor and Tyrannosaurus, preserved with feathers covering their entire bodies. Not scales that looked feather-like. Actual feathers, with barbs and quills, structurally identical to the ones on a pigeon sitting on your windowsill. Ostrom lived just long enough to watch the entire scientific establishment admit he'd been right the whole time. Think about that. The same evolutionary branch that produced Tyrannosaurus rex also grew feathers, brooded eggs like modern birds, and in several species, could already fly, tens of millions of years before the asteroid ever showed up. So, when the asteroid hit 66 million years ago, it didn't wipe out the dinosaurs as one single group. It wiped out almost everything: the plant-eating giants, the long-necked sauropods, every non-avian dinosaur on the planet. But one small, feathered, flying lineage made it through. Scientists have a name for this now. They don't call birds descendants of dinosaurs. They call them dinosaurs. Full stop. The same way you're still a mammal even after your ancestors stopped looking like the first ones. A paleontologist named Steve Brusata has spent decades studying exactly why that one branch survived when nothing else that size did. His research points to a few brutal advantages. These early birds were small, and small bodies need less food during an environmental collapse. They could already fly, which meant they could search huge distances for whatever scraps of food were left. And critically, many of them could eat seeds, which don't rot and don't need sunlight to survive on, unlike almost everything else in a scorched, ash-covered world. Every other dinosaur on Earth needed a functioning ecosystem to survive. Birds needed a pocket of seeds and enough sky to search for them. And here's the part that doesn't get talked about enough. This isn't a metaphor or a loose evolutionary connection, or scientists being generous with a definition. Look at the skeleton of a chicken and the skeleton of a velociraptor side by side, and the similarities aren't subtle. The wishbone, the hollow, air-filled bones, the three-toed feet, the way both walk with their weight balanced over their hips. A chicken carries the same skeletal blueprint that a dinosaur was using 150 million years ago, just miniaturized and repurposed for a completely different world. Researchers have even managed to find traces of original organic material preserved inside dinosaur fossils, soft tissue and proteins that have survived tens of millions of years. When compared at a molecular level, the closest living match every time is a bird, and this is where it gets messier than most documentaries let on. As of right now, over 30 species of small and mid-sized theropods have been found with direct fossil evidence of feathers, everything from Velociraptor to Microraptor, a four-winged glider barely the size of a crow. But Tyrannosaurus rex sits in an awkward spot. We've found skin impressions from T-Rex showing pebbly scales on parts of its body, and no confirmed feather impressions on an adult. That's led some paleontologists to argue full-grown T. Rex may have been mostly scaled, with feathers possibly limited to juveniles or to certain ancestors earlier in its family line, like the smaller feathered Tyrannosauroid Eutyrannus, discovered in 2012, which was covered in shaggy, filament-like feathers and weighed over a ton. So the debate isn't whether tyrannosaurs could grow feathers. Eutyrannus already proved that. The debate is whether the biggest ones needed to keep them. Some researchers think a 9-ton predator generating that much body heat may have lost most of its feathers the same way modern elephants lost their fur, not because the ancestry changed, but because size changed the math. Either way, the skeleton underneath never stopped being the same one that's walking around outside your window in miniature. So the next time you see a pigeon on a sidewalk or a crow picking through trash, you're not looking at something dinosaurs left behind, you're looking at the actual thing. A direct, unbroken lineage stretching back past Tyrannosaurus, past Stegosaurus, past every dinosaur you drew as a kid, all the way to the very first feathered ancestor that figured out how to survive an extinction event that killed off almost everything else that ever lived on land. So here's the full picture. Around 150 million years ago, one branch of small, feathered dinosaurs started experimenting with flight. For decades, scientists refused to believe they were related to the giants in the fossil record at all. Then the evidence became impossible to ignore. 66 million years ago, an asteroid ended the reign of almost every other dinosaur on Earth in a matter of hours. But that one small, flying, seed-eating branch slipped through the gap, and every single bird alive today, every pigeon, every crow, every chicken on every dinner plate is the direct, living continuation of that lineage. The dinosaurs never actually went extinct. They just got smaller, grew better feathers, and learned to fly away from the thing that killed everything else. If you want to go deeper into the fossil evidence behind this, I've linked the key research in the description. There are over 11,000 species of dinosaur alive on Earth right now. You've just never thought of them that way before.